Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into Solidarity Live, where we take stories and questions from the community here in Somerville and Medford, and then we bring in experts to talk about those issues, and we also figure out how we can solve these problems together as a community. So today I'm actually quite excited. I'm going to be talking to a musician here in Somerville and the difficulties that you can imagine they have living under COVID, trying to live as a musician in the economic climate that we have. And we also will have on a musician from Canada. And so we will talk about the differences there. So I'm going to bring those folks in. We have with us James Lasui. I hope I said that right. You'll be able to introduce yourself as well. And Kat McLeavy. So awesome. You are both live. And I'm going to go ahead and start with James. So if you want to just introduce yourself briefly and talk about what has happened in your life since the lockdown started.
Okay. Well, hello. My name is James Lasui. I'm from California, but I came to the Boston area or Somerville area for my grad studies at Boston Conservatory. I was serving tables as a server, and since COVID became a thing, I am not in work because I can't serve. There's no one, everything's shut down. So it's pretty much affecting my financial situation directly. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and when we talked earlier, and by the way, I will just mention to you, it's a little bit awkward on the screen because all three of us are like 1, 2, 3, and so you're very narrow, so you're going to stay kind of in the center of the screen. But
Okay.
yeah, stay there. So James, when you and I had spoken earlier, you mentioned that you were doing a lot of music gigs and really kind of living the life of a musician.
Yeah.
But that recently you had taken on the restaurant job because you wanted to be able to save money, right? You didn't want to just meet your expenses, but you wanted to save. Can you talk a little bit about that and about the timing of when you took this job as well?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I can definitely do that. I was working at Starbucks as a cafe barista manager, basically. I realized that it was really fulfilling in being like a service to people on some level. Not just being a musician and serving people that way and serving my soul, but also serving people and the human spirit. And so I realized that I couldn't support myself and save by being a musician and a barista. So I thought I'm really good at the hospitality industry. So I should probably find another job somewhere within this service area. And so I quit Starbucks as a barista manager and I got a job as a server. And it was awesome. I was just starting to make tips, and just starting to make enough to save money, put that away for later, and also support myself. But right when that happened, legitly, right when that happened, like not even a month later, COVID happened. And
Uh,
that's the thing that really messed everything up for me personally, but like for a lot of other people, I'm sure as well. So um, that that pretty much destroyed or took away all of my like gigs that are coming up right now recently. And also I can't serve tables, so I'm just not doing much at all.
yeah, so both the music gigs and the restaurant, your restaurant job, have really been shut down by
Exactly.
the economic climate. And you are an opera performance major, is that right?
Yes, I studied opera.
Wonderful. Fantastic. So I am going to, well, before we switch over to what's happening in Canada, I just want to ask if it's okay, how are you doing financially? Can you talk to us about were you able to pay this month's rent? And how did you do that? And then are you able to pay next month's rent? Like, what does it look like for you? What does the future look like for you?
Okay, that's a big question. It's very loaded and a little bit triggering, but I'm down to answer that because it's real life and it's happening not to just me but to like everyone, and
Yes.
it's definitely important. So initially, the first month that it happened, when we all shut down and I had half of my rent like saved up from my server job, but then I had to reach out to resources like There's one in Somerville, Medford area, the Mamas page, and they really helped me a lot to get the rest of my rent and my utilities for the first month that we were shut down. The
And that's
second
a
month,
mutual aid. That's a mutual aid
the mu-
organization. So just reaching out to neighbors and people
yeah,
in the community. Yeah.
I was very surprised by the people who did donate, and also not just money, but also people actually gave groceries, and that was very
Wow.
helpful for me because I was able to eat,
That is great.
um, and so it was great for the first month, but I had to figure out what am I going to do for the next month, and that's when we got the stimulus check, and I was able to do that for my next month. But this coming months are a little bit different. I just my papers for unemployment are being processed currently, so I'm waiting to hear back from them, but that should be coming in sometime soon. Which I wasn't allowed to apply for unemployment because I wasn't officially laid off initially. My restaurant, my employer asked us to just wait. We should be opening up soon. So I did, and I didn't file for unemployment. But then they laid us all off, and so I had to file for unemployment,
Yeah.
which is okay, but it's also not going to be enough for the long run. So it's definitely tricky. This coming month, I'm fine, but after that, it's a big question mark.
Who knows, right? So, I mean,
Exactly.
your life is completely up in the air and it must be very stressful and you have no idea
Oh,
where you're going to be able to pay your bills a couple months down the road.
exactly. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I am going to go ahead and switch over to Kat McLevy. So you're both still on, but Kat, you just introduce yourself and what's happening with you right now, especially since COVID.
Sure. So Anna, you and I obviously know each other because I lived in Somerville. I sat at that table where you are right now, lived housemates. But yeah, I went to music school at Berkeley. I graduated in August. And then after that, I moved back to Canada. And I was touring a little bit and ended up settling in Toronto. And that's where I am now. And yeah, so I guess around the beginning of March was when the lockdown started getting pretty serious, and I was just coming back to Toronto. I got back about a week before they started issuing or suggesting the 14-day quarantines after travel to the United States. So I just came
Mm.
back from the States, and then I think literally maybe a week later, they really started getting serious about the quarantining. And yeah, I still know a lot of folks in the States and have been able to keep in touch and kind of just, feel good and really thankful for the situation I am in, which I guess I'll talk about in a second.
Mm-hmm. So just before,
But
just as
yeah,
a little pause, like you and James are both working musicians. You both were in the Boston area, both, graduated from music school and working as musicians. So tell us what happened when the lockdown started and you're in Canada.
so I think the most immediate thing was throughout the month of March and April, I was subbing a lot as a private instructor, like private music teacher, which I had been doing since I moved in November. So I was getting maybe 4 or so days a week of teaching at these 3 separate music schools and taking on students. And I was I had a lot of days lined up for March and April. I was going to be touring again in June, so it was kind of that was kind of my chance to save up a little bit for until I was gonna have another contract gig. But that all got canceled. And as those music schools were transitioning to an online platform for teaching, it wasn't the case anymore. Like the people that I was subbing for were not going on tour anymore. They weren't going to be out of town, so they didn't need a substitute. And also with that transition to online teaching, you're going to lose a lot of students. So I very quickly, within a couple of days, had no sub days lined up anymore. And that was daunting for sure, especially because at the time the Canadian government had not stipulated the rules yet or the eligibility for any funding that they were going to be offering. So there was a little small amount of time that was really up in the air. But yeah, soon things started coming together. So one of the music schools that I teach at offered me to have to take on my own students for the first time. So I wasn't subbing anymore, but I took on my own private students. And that's I've been getting more every week. So I have 15 students now that I teach online.
Wow.
But I think more importantly is that I'm also eligible to be getting money from the government, from the federal government. So for 4 months, so you can backdate through March 15th. So the first period was March 15th to April 15th, and then it's for 3 months after that. You can get $2,000 a month from the government, and that's basically just taxable income. And it's actually, I don't understand how it's such an easy process, but you go on the Canadian Revenue Agency website and you click 3 boxes, and then you get a direct deposit within 3 business days. I never had to submit anything. I never had to submit like any proof of losing income. At first, they had a rule that you had to not make any income for 14 consecutive days, and I had like subbed 1 day. So I was thinking for the first month that I was not going to be eligible because I had made like $100.
Wow.
But they changed those rules to say that you can, if you make less than 1,000 in a month, then you can still get the 2,000. So I'm in a really fortunate position right now where I am teaching I'm teaching 3 days a week, and I'm not quite making that 1,000 from that teaching, so I'm still eligible on top of my teaching money to get $2,000 from the government. So I'm more financially stable now than I was before the lockdown and before COVID.
And you have any medical issues that you have are covered because Canada essentially has a single payer national Medicare for all style.
Yes,
system.
And some of that information is, I think, a little bit misunderstood, at least from some folks I met from the States. And it's in that, yeah, you can go to the hospital and you can go to a doctor's appointment and there's no co-payments, but like I still have to pay for private insurance because I have a pre-existing condition and I also have medications that I have to take. So those are not covered under the Medicare for all style healthcare plan. But it is a huge, huge difference to not be paying any co-pays and it might be a little bit of a longer wait time to get into, say, a specialist, but that's not going to depend on, if you can pay the co-payment or not.
Yeah. So the other question that I want to bring up for you, James, is you had mentioned to me that you might look for work. Can you talk a little bit about that and about your concerns around that?
Well, yeah. So my initial concern was if I don't get unemployment on time or if I don't get anything really, I'll have to either I would have to make an income to survive and to pay rent and pay for food and everything that I need. And so my biggest concern about going to work or finding work is, first of all, finding work. I have found some just doing research. The jobs available are pretty much, there's not a lot, first of all. And second of all, the ones I find are pretty much you're always on the front line of just being exposed to someone possibly. And that's something that I find very discouraging because it's in order to make a living and make money and to survive, I have to risk my health and my well-being in order to do that. So it's to me, it's either I feel like I have a choice either to most likely get sick from this virus or stay home and not make money and then I don't know, just like slowly disappear somewhere, or like I feel like there's no good option for me, particularly right now, in the moment, right now,
That's right.
So it's very scary and not fun, but I feel like everyone is like in a very similar situation. So
We've had what 30 million people file for unemployment in America since the start of COVID, something like that. It might be a total of 30 million.
yeah,
And
sheesh.
I like through talking to you and other people who really are facing this choice of, okay, I either get myself a job that is dangerous for my health, or I have no idea how I'm going to pay my rent and put food on the table. I don't know. And I think neither of you have kids. I could be wrong. I don't know. I didn't ask that question. But I mean, for parents who have children they have to feed, it's yet another level of question there. And I do worry that the way America is set up, that we let everybody fend for themselves. That this lockdown situation is creating an environment where we allow people with white collar jobs to remain safely ensconced in their apartments, and everyone else has to, basically become an essential worker serving those people and putting themselves in danger, or else.
Exactly. Definitely.
And it doesn't have to be this way. So this is actually this is the second of it's like a new segment on the show called "It Doesn't Have to Be This Way." I mean,
That's good.
Same situation. Two musicians, similar life stages. One in America, one in Canada. It does not have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. Kat, I assume you're not like running around, thinking you're going to have to get a job as an Amazon worker or a grocery store clerk in order to pay your bills.
Yeah, we're very fortunate here in that this guaranteed funding is going to go through to the fall. And, I could be wrong, but I feel confident that if the lockdown was still happening in the fall, that there would still be funding available. And even for the first month, so through the end of March, when the funding eligibility criteria was not released yet, there was you could I can't remember what the word is, but my house actually didn't pay rent at the beginning of April because all of my housemates and I are musicians and the funding wasn't available yet. So we were able to not pay rent and not worry about getting evicted or having any repercussions because of that.
And that was because of city policy or national policy or
national policy, yeah. I guess renters protection. I can't remember what the term is, but yeah, I feel like I'm not worried about having to sacrifice my health and safety in order to make rent, and I understand that privilege. And especially talking to you, James, it's really and Anna as well. It's it's funny. I almost didn't come back to Canada.
I remember. I know. You know what though? You probably. I'm guessing that as soon as the lockdown happened, you would have hightailed it to Canada. Last week our "It Doesn't Have to Be This Way" segment. Here, my quotes didn't show up. It doesn't have to be this way segment was actually a guy who was living here in Somerville until the lockdowns, and 2 weeks after the lockdowns happened, he got a flight to South Korea because that's where his parents were. He's like born in America, but his parents are from South Korea, and they happened to be there. And they were like, "You got to come here." And now he's in South Korea, and guess what? He goes to work. People are going to school. people are going out to restaurants and things. They have testing and contact tracing. They have everything under control, and they are leading normal lives because of policy.
Mm-hmm.
Because their government has their shit together. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So I bet you would have gone.
Yeah,
You know.
I think I would have, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, I am going to give you guys both an opportunity to say any final words, but I first just want to thank you so, so much. James, it's not like we have millions of viewers, but it takes bravery to let your personal story be out there for people. And I really, really appreciate you doing this, because there are many people in your shoes, and personal stories motivate people to action. And I think it's really important that we get these stories out there, so that people understand the gravity and the impact of policy and how much it affects people's lives. So I really, really appreciate you coming on. And Kat, of course, love you dearly. We were housemates. I don't know if people have really fully understood that, but we lived together for a whole year. She's wonderful, wonderful. And James, I know you're wonderful as well. But we don't have quite the same history. And so thank you so much, Kat, as well, for being on. I'm going to let you each say some final words. Maybe, Kat, why don't you go first?
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Anna. I also believe it's, I'm glad that I could come on to this call as the person in Canada.
Oh, Canada.
Because, but yeah, I'm glad that I can kind of just affirm that it doesn't have to be this way. And sending good thoughts, of course, to both you and James.
Thank you so much. James,
thanks.
Your final thoughts?
I just wanted to thank you for having me on this show. I really appreciate it. I definitely agree with sharing personal stories to help people make positive change for the better for the world and for our community. So having me on here, I really appreciate you having me on here. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Wonderful to have you both. Stay well.
You too.
And let's all get together and make some serious change, because our country is in deep doo-doo. Oh, wonderful. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We will be signing off, and we will see you next week. Thanks so much.
Bye, Anna.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.